Hey everybody, and welcome to Kurt's Angle. It's Kurt Johansson here, and today I've got a very special guest that's kickstarting a new series that I'll be doing, where I'll be talking to everybody that's breaking through the wrestling scene now, talking of life as a trainee wrestler and moving on to the shows, making a name for themselves. This series, from the ground up, first guest is Reach Academy's L.A. Taylor. L.A., thank you for joining.
Hello, it's really good to speak to you.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've been chatting, and as soon as this opportunity came up with yourself, with Reach, I was like, yep, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to start building this series essentially around you, so no pressure in that aspect.
Oh, no pressure at all, yeah.
But no, so all we're going to be doing for the listeners is basically let everybody know who you are, what you've been going on, and you've got a really interesting story from what we've been talking about, whether it was on Twitter or before we went on the air. It's something that I think will be really valuable for people that are trainees at the moment, but also people that are thinking, could I hack training to be a professional wrestler? And that's what I'm wanting to do is shine a light on yourselves, and hopefully from your story, from your experiences, you can inspire others with who have aspirations to become a professional wrestler.
Absolutely, for sure.
So to start off with, like, why wrestling? Like, what got you hooked? Whether it was a fan or if you thought, actually, I just need a career change. Like, what was your first memory and introduction to professional wrestling?
So those are two very different questions for me, actually. My first memories of wrestling are when my mum banned it in our house when I was very young. So I'd only just started watching it maybe for a couple of weeks. In the morning before everybody wakes up, you're still
Yeah,
in your pajamas, and I would just ruthlessly jump on my younger brother. So I'd like run along the sofa, jump up onto the sofa arm, and do a flying leap onto him. And he would take many an injury, and she finally sort of had enough and just went, right, this is banned, and that was that. I would sneak trying to watch wrestling at friends' houses when I was growing up, and in school I would ask whatever. Usually boys would have like the action figures, and I'd be like,
yeah,
"Oh, show me what happened in like what happened this week," and they'd be like, "Oh, and act out the action figures and things, and that was. They could have been making it up on the spot. I wouldn't have known, but to me, like all of this was the gospel of everything that happened. So, you know, um, it wasn't until actually, what was it? The run up to WrestleMania Orlando, like the
okay,
really recent one, that I got back into watching wrestling as an adult. Loads of my friends are wrestling fans, and I just happened to sit down and watch it at a friend's house. I was like, I'm going to start watching. I wasn't allowed to watch this as a kid. I'm going to watch it now and see what it's about, just so I can right that wrong.
yeah,
And I just got majorly into it, and I had never seen women's wrestling before. I'd always sort of looked up to like the guys. I don't
yeah.
remember ever seeing women wrestle. So when I saw what the women were doing uh, at that event, I was just like, wow, um, that's really cool. So I sort of became a fan from there, I suppose. Hmm.
Well, 'cause that Orlando show, what would it have been? Mania 33, I believe.
Hmm. Hmm.
You had the likes of Bailey, Charlotte Flair, Nia Jackson, Sasha Banks. So for you never seeing like women wrestle to then having like four of the best, and then you've got the six pack challenge for the women's title on SmackDown as well. Is
Hmm.
that when you thought, "Ooh, could I do this?"
I I think a little bit of me was a bit like that. It must have been at some level. I remember the first thought I had was all of these women are so different.
Yeah,
Like there seems to really be room for everyone in sports entertainment, as they
yeah,
call it. So I was just like, that's really cool. It seemed to be a very positive message that they were sending out, and I like heavily bought into that. Um, not as like a negative thing, but I just happened to be a much fatter woman, and heavily asthmatic, and I could see people there that I could sort of see a bit of myself in,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, if they can do it, then anyone can do it, which isn't actually the case, but but with
Yeah.
enough hard work, anyone could do it, if they really want to. So I thought that was awesome.
So when was it where you thought, right, this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to start looking at academies. I'm going to see how I can get into it. Like you said, a lot of your childhood it got cancelled. You weren't allowed to watch it. You've seen WrestleMania. Now you're part of the UK British wrestling scene. So what was your first exposure to the British wrestling scene yourself?
So I went to a taster training session before I'd ever seen a show in person.
Okay.
A friend, it was very much one of those things where it's maybe March, April, and everyone's still holding on to their New Year's resolution. And a friend of mine was like, I'm going to try something new every month. And she saw this on Facebook
Yep.
and she was like, ah, be a laugh. You watch wrestling. Uh, why don't we have a go at it? And we went along. Um, and it happened to be my greatest opponent, Aurora. So we went along to that, and she couldn't make the next one. So first of all, we went there just thinking we'll do this, it'll be a laugh, and then we'll try like gymnastics next month or something.
Yep.
We never sort of expected it to stick. They had another one the following month. I went to that one, and Jason was the one who was running it,
Yep.
and he said about reach. He said if anyone wants to sort of train where we were training, they didn't have a ring. So he was like,
Okay.
we have a ring and it's going to be in Plymouth and we're just starting up. So we're hoping to get it like regularly going and everything. So if you want to come along to like the first day, it's this date and everyone's more than welcome. I went up to that. Unfortunately, Aurora couldn't make it, bless her. But she obviously did eventually.
Yep.
Did a few, like I think it was maybe so, and then I dragged her up there, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get the time off work." And she did, and we started going there together, and that was that really. The first show that we had both seen in person was the first Reach show.
Okay.
Um, so that was eye-opening for us. We'd only seen it on the TV.
Yeah. So Reach really is like your home. It's their show was the first exposure you had to British wrestling and the first show you saw live.
Yep,
It's where you learnt your craft. It's where it is a home. It's not one where you've just been going, right, I'll go train here, I'll go train there.
not at all. No,
Reach is
Reach is home.
yeah, Reach is home for you. And the fact that you've been able to do it with one of your friends and again both of you are killing it through the Reach Academy and getting a lot of fantastic opportunities. What's it like being able to do that with like one of your closest friends?
It's been a mad experience. You I've known her for maybe 12 years, and you think you know someone in that time, but you learn so much more about each other in your friendship, and um, it's really brought us closer together. It's a wonderful thing. So yeah, it's been great to have someone there. Like when I finally dragged her up, she's a personal trainer and she's like pound for pound, she is one of the strongest people in the academy, right? So I've been bragging on her for ages, going, "Oh, you boys aren't going to stand a chance as soon as I bring her up here." And when I finally got her up there, she was just there like, "Great, we have to live up to the hype." So that was good fun. But I'll give her a bit of a shout out now because she has done all my programs for any fitness throughout the entire time I've and she's just really great at that. So
Oh no,
yeah.
that's brilliant. Like
Mm.
because you mentioned that and that she's helped you with your fitness and the programs, you'd mentioned one of the things like what you had to do to become a professional wrestler. And I don't
Mm,
want to say what you've had to do. I want you to be able to tell that story. So
okay.
wrestling's not easy. Sacrifices are made.
Mm,
What are your sacrifices you've had to do?
well, wrestling really did not fit in with the life I had picked out for myself at the time. And the more and more I trained, and the more and more I thought I want to give this a go, the more that became apparent. So I met a fair amount of resistance. Um, you know, I'd bought a house with my partner at the time, and very much like living the white picket fence, like going into that sort of lifestyle at quite an
Yeah,
early age, to be fair. Um, and it became apparent that the two couldn't coexist really. Um, and as much as it definitely wasn't wrestling that made that come to an end, I can't see that I would be wrestling and training as much as I am or getting the opportunities that I am without that having changed.
yeah,
So like I that relationship is no longer a thing. Um, the house is sold off. I live a very different lifestyle now. I've adjusted work schedules. I work some overtime some days to sort of accommodate that. I use up holiday pay and everything and time to get time to wrestle. So there's no real time off. Um, that's just used to train and wrestle. Um, I don't really have any free time, so as much as I still live in an area around a lot of my friends. I don't really see them a lot because I need to get certain things done, certain things
yeah.
in. Um, so that's one thing, or a few things, I suppose. I everything I eat, sleep, read, watch, drink is sort of 90% of it is geared towards getting better or
Yeah.
working towards that. So it's become quite the obsession. But yeah, my entire life has changed. Like I live somewhere else. I live in one room, and whereas I lived in a house before and things like that, and I've changed the car I drive, and the way I live day to day is completely different. Mm.
But you've got to make those sacrifices to do do what you love essentially.
Mhm.
What was your reaction from your family? So you said your mum banned you from watching wrestling, and
Yeah.
here you are. You've just essentially flipped your whole life and lifestyle upside down. And like, I'm gonna do this crazy world of professional wrestling. What what was that? What was her reaction to that? Like, what was your family and friends' reaction when you was like, "Hey, this is what I'm dedicating my life to"?
hmm
Hello.
I One of the main things was
Oh, there we go.
there we go. A lot of my long-term friends, I found that they suddenly would almost come out and confess to me that they had been lifelong wrestling fans, but they hadn't told anyone. They'd be like, I have the WWE network and I watch things every week. And I'd be like, oh, that's great. So do I. And they'd be like, oh, I just haven't told anyone. And I found that they, my long-term friends were not shocked at all.
Yeah.
Um, my family, my mum was just like, you're doing what? And sort of completely had forgotten the whole debacle about it being banned. I was just there like, that was a small moment for her, but a massive thing for me. So, but at first they were very much like, oh, what if you hurt yourself? Oh, you're not really very athletic. You are very asthmatic, which I was. All of those things, they're very right. And it was very much like, well, this is taking up a lot of time, and you're never home, and things like that. And I was sort of like, yeah, but I'm still going to do it. So she wasn't surprised about the sort of stubborn nature of it all.
Yeah.
She was like, that's very much you. Um, and very much a family thing. But yeah, she went from being uncertain and not getting it, and she never wanted to come to shows. Didn't want to get involved with it. She was like, "No, that's your thing. You just do it," which is fine. But she's gone from that to suddenly taking a bit more of an interest, and gradually, as like they came to watch me at a show the other day, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we get it." So like,
Yeah.
I've been begging them for months to come and watch me. Like, "Oh, just come and see me. You know, it'd be great. It'd be really lovely just to have you there, just so you know what I do." And they they were just like, "Oh, we get it now," and
Yeah.
they're incredibly supportive, and giving and generous with their allowances on how little time I can spend with them really,
Yeah.
and that they're always asking after it, and they'll be like, "Oh, you know, you make sure that if you get a chance to train somewhere that you don't let anything stand in your way, and if you
Oh,
need
good.
help from us, then let us know." And so they've done a complete turnaround, and I'm currently living the perpetual dream with having their support, which is lovely. Um, so yeah, I hope that lasts a while. Long may it continue.
Oh no, definitely. So, how long had you been training with Reach before you actually did your first match in front of an audience?
Good question. I know that my first match was September 14th, 2019. When did I start training? I probably started training a year before that,
Yeah.
maybe. Not consistently. Probably at that point I'd probably been consistently training for sort of 9, 10 months, I think.
Okay.
Um, but yes, yeah, but about that.
How was that first match for
The nerves were outrageous.
you?
Um, and I've done a bit of acting and singing and things like that, so that was I'm used to getting the nerves when
Yeah.
you're doing something new, but it never stops it being horrid. So I remember just being like, just don't forget what you've got to do, just do what you've got to do, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. And the thing is you just don't want to mess up. Mainly, I felt like I didn't want to mess up on behalf of everybody else.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'll look like an idiot, I don't care, but I don't want anyone else to look bad if I do something that's not so good. So that was the main thing. Nerves were mad, but and they were still I was still pretty like shaking when I was in the ring, to be fair, but
Yeah.
we had a great time and it went off without a hitch. So that match was that was good fun. Good fun.
So since then, you've been not only doing the Reach Academy shows, you've been going on to like the main shows of Reach as well. How's it been with your more experienced colleagues? Like, how have they received you? You're this up and comer, stealing the spotlight essentially. What's what's everybody's reaction been? Like, some of the vets, have they been giving you good advice? Have they been a bit like, who's this? Who's this girl? Like, what's that been like for you?
Everyone is, especially the guys that they get down at Reach,
Yep.
everyone is very giving and very generous with their time and their advice. And if you approach them and ask them for advice, they will give it. They won't, you know, all of those people that you see on their posters and things, every single one of them is an absolute delight, really.
Yeah.
Um, I find it's very nerve-wracking going up to someone for the first time and being like, "Hi, um, could you perhaps watch my match and give me some feedback, please?" That's the nerve-wracking bit, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but they're always so giving. They're always like, "Yeah, sure," and
What's
it's no big deal to them.
yeah.
But there's I can't speak highly enough of that locker room atmosphere. It's really nice. It's a good one.
Who's given you the best like piece of feedback where there might have been like, hey, good job, and you're like, wow, I've had the approval of that person.
That is a really good question. Um, There's been a few. That's no, not like arrogantly. Only like there's like two or three,
There's been
and
loads that are saying I'm amazing.
yeah, don't read it like that. I mean, there's not there's not one in particular, is what I mean.
Yeah,
I was. It's just small things that I like when people say like when they say, oh, when you took this move, it was spot on, and
yeah,
that will make me happy. Um, I like that. Or um, I had some. Who was it? Oh no, it's so bad. On like my first match, um, there's PJ Jones was there, and he said to me, he's just there like, "Yep, I like your character work and everything." He was like, "Keep going with that," and I was like, "Oh, that's really encouraging. That's awesome." He's a very encouraging guy, um, and good to be around.
yeah,
But I wrestled at All Star recently, and it was uh it was just one hell of a locker room that they've
yeah,
got there. Like the guys in there are insane, and I'm just there like these guys are they're the people that I'm following online and seeing what they're up to. I'm watching their matches when I can, and I think they're awesome. And of course, at the time, uh, Joel Redman was there,
yeah,
and at the time he was the Reach champion. So of course, I sort of knew who he was, and he had taught me a few times, and he was very lovely. He was just saying like, just go out there, do what you can do, try and remember everything that you've got to be, and work with the crowd and work with everyone you've got, and just give it your best because there's some good people here watching, and try and ask people for feedback. He said to me, "Oh, go and see James Mason and ask him for feedback." So I was
yeah,
like, no way. But I was like, he was like, no, go and do it. And I was like, okay. So I did. And I was like, hello. And luckily he had been down to Reach and
yeah,
given a seminar maybe the week before. So I was like, oh, hello. I'm not sure if you remember me, but you did a seminar down in Plymouth the other day and I was there and I wondered if you could watch my match and everything. And he gave me some lovely feedback on that match and said, the I think I did like a splash at the end, and he said, "Oh, I
yeah,
really liked that. That was good." So I was like, "Okay," and gave me some pointers and things I need to change on movement and things, and was just a very constructive with everything he said, and really giving with his advice. So that was a moment for me because James Mason, right? He's a fantastic wrestler. So that
yeah.
was um that was a big one for me.
No, getting the props from somebody because, like anybody that I know that's in the wrestling business have always said nothing but good stuff regarding James Mason. So,
Mm.
for somebody with such respect and is held in such high regard to give you that
Oh,
nod,
don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. He gave me plenty of things to work on.
and that's the best. That's the best thing. Like
Exactly.
these are the
That's what you
people
want
that
to hear.
yeah.
Mm.
So what is it like? What was one thing that he wanted you to work on that you've been trying to get better with?
Pacing.
Yeah,
So pacing the match. And uh, I was working face, and I don't work face a lot. Um, so it was just changing up how I move and
yeah,
things like that. So that was definitely a big thing. So just adjusting to that, and but yeah, invaluable advice. Everything he said, I was like, oh yeah, of course, of course. And I'm trying to work on that and constant. I try and when I get back to the car, I try and scribble down
everything.
what people have said, or when I get home, I try and scribble down like you need to work on this, and this person said you need to work on this, and then I try and do that. It's whether
Yeah.
or not it shows. Um, so yes.
So you had a great opportunity recently with Reach. You was on their All Roads Lead to Gold show on the 2nd of February where you got to face Millie McKenzie, who's held as one of the best regardless of gender, one of the best wrestlers here in the UK at the moment. How
Agreed.
was
Yeah.
that? How was that for you? Like, would you say that's your biggest match to date?
Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Um, and one that I didn't expect to come my way for quite some time.
Yeah,
So that was that required a massive step up, and I again I thought I'd thrown myself headfirst into training, but no. Turns out I could do twice as much. So I just became an absolute zealot for sort of I think I had 3 4 weeks leading up
yeah,
to it, and I just every single day, every single day. I think wrestle training I was doing like uh 16 to 20 hours a week, and then I was in the gym 2 3 times a week.
wow.
Um, which was mad and not sustainable at all. Which is why I've rocked it back a little bit now. But I thought, well, there's no point sitting there and panicking, just get to work.
Yeah,
So that was great, and it's in those moments where everybody sort of rallies round each other down
yeah,
at the academy, and they'll sort of be like, right, yeah, I'll help you if you want to work on this, I'll work with you on this, and you have so many different types of wrestlers there in the academy to draw upon different move sets and talents and way that they work that you can really learn so much from each other. So yes, but no, that was a fantastic opportunity, and I I feel incredibly fortunate to have had that experience. It taught me a lot.
yeah,
I gained a lot from that match. And Millie is a fantastic person and an absolute professional, and she was just completely brilliant with me, and
yeah.
I can't thank her enough, really. So yeah,
What was the feedback? Like, what was the reception when after that match when you've gone back into the back? Your peers are there. What was that feeling like?
that was mad. There were some there were some very very great wrestlers in that
Mm,
locker room that night. So I was very nervous about what was going to happen when I came back. Before we went in, you know, I felt a bit nervous, but everyone seemed fine. Everyone seemed
yeah.
happy. I had some good feedback. Um, so there it was. There it was.
So the match in question, for those of you listening, if you're not already subscribed already, go to your fight site. You can subscribe to the British Wrestling Pack there, and with that subscription, Reach is one of the UK promotions you can watch. And yeah, check it out. So it's All Roads Lead to Gold, and it's Reach's latest show that's on there. So off the back of that, you'd been I can't remember the name of it now. Was it the Good, the Bad, and the Ref where you won the Battle Royal? Apologies for the technical difficulties there. So it was the Good, the Bad, and the Ref. Was that when you became the number one contender for the Academy Championship?
It absolutely was. Yeah, there was a cracking battle royal
Yeah.
that we had. It had some cool people in it. We had Josh Knott and PJ Jones in there, and Jason King stepped in to have a go. Um, there was some honestly that was such fun, so much fun.
Was that your first Battle Royal in front of like a live crowd?
Yeah, it's just my first battle royal in full stop. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
And
yeah.
what do you think? So before we go on to like the result of that, like obviously, you had some of your female counterparts, you've had some of the male counterparts. What's your thoughts on intergender wrestling?
Good question. Um, Intergender wrestling is great. It does need to be believable,
Yeah,
and I think that you can make most situations and most matchups work if you have enough of a grasp on the story that you want to tell. So I believe that the way that you put the story of the match across is how you make it believable. Because obviously there are sometimes some size differences, or people just they find it maybe a little bit more difficult to believe.
Yeah,
Uh, Whether that be right or wrong, that just tends to be the case. But yeah, intergender wrestling's great. Why not? You've got so many. Think of all the great matches we could have had that we haven't had
yeah,
because we haven't had it. Uh, you know, uh, I I like it. I like it. I think it's difficult,
yeah.
but there's of course, yeah, there's definitely a place for it in the world, and I think it's great.
I think what's your like reaction with some of the guys? Because I've seen it when I've been at shows and I've spoke to people that have experienced it, where they might be doing the intergender wrestling and the male that they're facing might try and ease up on some of the punches, and 9 times out of 10, like the one will drop them. Bit like Saraya Knight, she's one of them. When somebody tries to
Yeah.
take it easy because she's female, she's like, "Give me your best, because I'll still knock you out."
Yep.
Have you had that where somebody's like maybe reining it in a little bit, so you're like, right, I'm just gonna show you I can take it.
Well, I've only, in terms of being in matches, the only intergender situation I've been in so far has been that battle royal.
Yeah.
Um, and all of the people in there know me, so they are very aware that I'm not going to go easy on them, and they are very aware that if they do try and go easy on me, then they're going to get told off. Well, not told off, but the feedback will be, "Don't go easy on her."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, there's a great action shot from your social media. So, for those of you that are watching the interview, well, listening to the interview through YouTube, you'll be able to see the action shot come up now, where you've just put, "I hope you know, you ain't no friend of mine, boy, by PJ Jones." And yeah, the Attitude Advisory Media got such a great shot of you clotheslining him over the
Oh,
top
my
rope.
face is
And
absolute thunder in that.
you you just look like absolute monster, just taking him out. And yeah, that's a fantastic action shot. So yeah, you ended up winning the Battle Royal, and so you said that was your first time with the intergender wrestling. However, 2nd of May, Supremacy, you'll be challenging Joey Seven for the Academy title. What's your
Mhm.
thoughts going into that? Because there's such huge ramifications going for the 728 days later show as well.
There's a lot on the line there.
Yes, there is.
So firstly, he's the biggest opponent I've ever had. Like all of my opponents have been smaller
Yeah.
than me. So I'm like, how am I gonna manage this? So that's interesting. Um, and if you do then move forward with the title, you have a battle royal to contend with. So it's yeah, huge ramifications. So much going into that. The next few months, like leading up to that July show, are going to be
Yeah.
so interesting. So interesting. Um, I am really, really, really excited for that Supremacy show. I cannot tell you. I'm so excited. Um,
Yeah, the
Wrestling Joey
Supremacy
Seven's a
show.
big challenge.
Yeah. No, and you'll definitely be in the main event for that show. Huge opportunity, and it's a great card. So for any of you that are looking at the show, 2nd of May, and it is essentially the epitome of intergender wrestling with the amount of um, female versus male matches on the show. And I just hope one day we can get rid of the term just intergender wrestling. It can just be
Mhm.
known as wrestling. It doesn't matter what gender, as long as you're lacing up the boots in the middle. Is that something you'd be hoping for, where it's one thing that gets me is the chant women's wrestling. Like
Oh
instead,
yeah.
to me, don't have to highlight women's wrestling. Just it's this is wrestling essentially. Is that how do you
Yeah,
feel like that being a female performer?
um I think I think when people chant that they mean it in a good way.
Yeah,
And I think the intention is there. And that's fine. In my view, I think I don't really have any place getting into individual fans' politics or thoughts
yeah,
on the matter. If they're chanting, then I'm happy because it means I'm getting a reaction.
yeah,
That's my first initial response. Good noise reaction,
yeah,
brilliant. That's what I want. In terms of whether we still call it intergender wrestling, like who can say? That it comes into telling the story and how believable you want it to be again. And that's not
yeah,
saying again that I don't think that women can compete on that same level with men. I just think that um, we need to think about what's believable. And if you still have genders separated at the Olympics,
yeah,
um, then I don't know. Well, I think we'd have to see where sport goes in general. Of
yeah,
course, in an ideal world, it would be great. Um, and that would just if we just get rid of the intergender and just say like you don't even have to make it a thing. It's like there's a wrestling match between these two wrestlers.
yeah,
That would be wonderful. Um, but yes, we'll just be interested to see where it goes. Really, we'll see, won't we?
yeah. So moving on to that July 4th show, obviously that's going to be my first live show for Reach. I'm
Oh
doing.
wow, you've picked a big one.
It's a big frigging journey, I tell you that. But it just
Absolutely.
shows like how good the show's going to be. It's going to You're going to be potentially the Reach Academy champion,
Mm.
or you might be challenging for it in the Battle Royal in the biggest professional wrestling show in the southwest of England outside of WWE. Like, how does that feel to be part of such a well historic show for independent wrestling?
It's something else, let me tell you. Like it's so cool. Um, it's what you hope for, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
You hope that you get to do something like that one day. And yeah, yeah, no, I think it's great. Honestly, the next few months, I'm just so excited to be at these shows and see how they go down and see everyone's reaction. And I think there's this really great feeling about it all.
yeah,
Everyone's super hyped up for it, and quite rightly. You know, the names that they're pulling out the hat are just incredible.
ridiculous.
So it'll be great. Yeah, absolutely.
No, it'll be a brilliant show. So anybody that would be interested in it's the Plymouth Guild Hall, Saturday, July 4th, 2020. And yeah, geography, it's not a factor. If I can do I think what's going to be a 23-hour round trip.
My
I think
God,
it's like 684 miles round trip.
that is dedication, right?
Well, the trains are just ridiculous. They're like £200. I was like, I can't justify that. I get married in August.
Oh, mate.
Cannot be, cannot be doing that. So yeah, 684-mile round trip on a coach. Hopefully, it's better than the coaches I've had previously because I've had some horrific experiences. But for anybody that can get to Plymouth, support British wrestling. There's a reason why I'm doing a series where it's highlighting that Brit wrestling isn't dead. There's so many striving companies, and I think Reach is the biggest example of that, where they're consistently moving forward, and now going to make history in the southwest of England for independent wrestling. So, moving away slightly from Reach, you mentioned you worked for All Star recently. You also got to wrestle in Norwich with WAW. How was that making your debut for that show?
Oh, those guys are so nice. So we went up for a training weekend,
Yeah,
and they were just everyone was so lovely and so welcoming, and we had an awesome time. And they they have like a yearly awards evening, so they invited us to that, and that was great. Um, and then they sort of said to us the Sunday lunchtime, and the show was that sort of evening. They were like, "Oh, pop you on the show then." And we're like, oh, "Okay," and yeah, it was just nice. It's great to work with everyone. So we were working, me and Echo Reed from Reach both went up, and we were both on that show, and we got to work with the Bellatrix Female Warriors, those all of those women from that side of the WAW Academy, and it's just one of those unique situations where you don't seem to get that many female wrestlers together in one situation.
Yeah.
Um, so that was novel. I liked that.
No, Bellatrix is great. Like so many different females have come through that roster and have gone on to great successes. And just WAW like as a whole, you've when you spoke about Reach, it sounds like when you're speaking about Reach, you're speaking about essentially your family. Like you're all like a close knit family. You're all doing it together, and it's a similar
We
vibe
absolutely are.
with
Yeah.
WAW. Is it
Yeah,
something
for
you wanting to do
sure.
more of?
In what sense?
So hitting the road, going away, doing. Is there any like companies in the UK where you've got maybe like a little bucket list of right? I want to work for that company at least once.
Oh, crumbs. I think I'd really like to work for Chaos one day. That would be
Okay.
cool. I think I've been to a couple of their shows, and they're fun. They're really fun. And of course now they've sort of changed ownership and things are changing up there.
Yeah.
So I I think that most people in the Southwest want to work for them. That would be one for me for sure.
Yeah.
hmm
Brilliant.
one day.
So as a female wrestler as well, like what's your thoughts on Eve, Pro Wrestling Eve? Is that somewhere you would like to do? They have so many connections with like Japanese wrestling, the Joshi wrestling, as you've seen with Millie McKenzie. Is
hmm
Eve something that's on your goal? Is going to Japan something you're wanting to do? Like, what are your goals and aspirations for professional wrestling?
That is a fantastic question. Um, Pro Wrestling Eve, I'm very aware of them, and I follow them online and things like that. Um, and I've seen some performers who I greatly admire have performed there, and I've watched sort of bits of their matches there and things like that. I haven't been there, so I think what I'd like to do first is go to a show there and sort of learn a bit more about them and see what that's like. Everyone says the atmosphere there is pretty cool,
Yeah,
so I'd like to experience that. Um, in terms of Japan, yeah, absolutely. Why not? Um, I've always wanted to go to Japan. I like wrestling. Japan and wrestling seem to go hand in hand, and it's a place where people seem to go and they seem to come back better.
yeah,
Um, and any chance that I have to learn and improve and bring back some knowledge and just work on myself, that's something that's priceless, isn't it? So,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
What's what's your main goal out of all this? Like in the crazy world of wrestling, you've spoken about WWE with you watching that as a fan. Like, what's the end goal for you? Where if you get there, you're like, I've made it. This is where I want to be.
Um, I honestly couldn't tell you. I feel like there's never going to be a point where I'm satisfied.
Yep.
I'm always going to want to hit the next thing, get somewhere, and and get better and see how far I can push that. My I wrote it down because I couldn't sort of I couldn't even say to myself like what is your goal with this?
Yeah.
And I managed to boil it down to what I want to do is wrestle as much as I possibly can,
Yep.
work on whatever wasn't right, get that right, wrestle again, do that, rinse and repeat, keep doing that and try and get as good as I can and get better and better and better and better and better until I physically can't drag myself to the ring. I I just want to get good at it.
Yeah.
I see it like as an art form. And I think with anything that's an art form, you just strive to be better than you were yesterday. And it's all very subjective. So I think, you know what, if I'm improving and I'm moving forward and I continue to do that until I physically cannot anymore, then I've done it right. And wherever that takes me or whatever happens, then so be it.
No, brilliant. So, with that in mind, I sometimes do what's called one more match, whether that's with other podcasters and collaborators or with different people I interview. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the goals and aspirations.
Hmm.
Is what I'd like you to come up with. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So
Oh,
two
okay.
two wrestlers that uh, have made their name in the UK that you want to wrestle, and if you can choose two wrestlers anywhere in the world to wrestle, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Um, See, if you'd asked me this back along, then Millie McKenzie would be on there. I
Yeah,
think she still would be. Is that fair? I can have someone.
yeah, one more match. Hello,
Hi.
there we go.
Uh,
Yeah, so you mentioned Millie McKenzie.
yes, so I would have her there on there still because I sincerely believe that she is one of the best female wrestlers internationally. So, um, let alone like, in the UK, like
Yeah,
screw it, she's top of the list, right? So, Millie McKenzie, because I just think it's always going to be, no matter what type of match you have, it's always going to be entertaining. Everyone always buys into it. It's always, and it was just so much fun when I wrestled her before.
yeah.
Um, and ah, who else? Hmm, this is such a difficult question, actually. Um, um, Locally, Josh Knott.
Okay,
I would
why
like
is that?
to wrestle Josh Knott. I think he's great, and he's come along to training a few times, and each time I learn a lot from him.
Yeah,
And that I just think it'd be an absolute laugh. I really do. Um, I'm going to choose three. I'd really love to wrestle Tony Storm,
yeah.
but that's mad, right? To me, that's like that's never going to happen. So, so yeah, I picked Millie and Josh with a side helping of Tony, some Tony time.
I just like how you're like, oh, that's a difficult question. Oh, actually, I'm picking three.
Yeah, yeah. Then I get greedy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
then
if
what was it? Anyone in the world and
anybody in the world,
anybody in the world. Beth Phoenix.
okay. Why? Well, I know I'm going to state the obvious here, but why
Yeah.
Beth?
Um, in terms of stature, moveset, attitude, um, body image, and everything, it's someone who I look up to. So purely as a you want to wrestle your idol sort of thing. I say
Yeah,
idol, but it's just someone I look up to really.
yeah.
Um, so that would just be awesome for me. Um,
Do you look at
then
her body of work, like when you're doing some researching or anything like that? Is that somebody where you'll watch her matches to try and pick up on some new stuff?
I tend to, in a way, yeah.
Yeah.
She's so strong is what always gets to me. I'm just like, she is so strong. She's like lifting up people. I'm like, that's awesome. If anything, I get a great amount of inspiration from her. more than
Yeah.
anything else. In terms of she genuinely loves the business, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She's a great one to follow online. Oh yeah. Second. Who else? Who else? Um, oh, this is so difficult. Uh, um,
Is there anybody from that WrestleMania card that you watched from when you first got back into wrestling? If you could choose one of them and be like, that's that person right there.
oh, Charlotte Flair. She's the standout, isn't she?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like those answers are very obvious. Um, but like those are tall, strong, blonde women. So, and I'm very much just like, oh, I like that. So um, that's what I aspire to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that speaks for itself.
Oh
Mm.
no, brilliant. Well, LA, thank you for coming on and doing the first episode from the ground up. I think I put a lot of pressure on the beginning, but you definitely like stuck there, and it's making me want to do this series a lot more. You've got a fantastic story, which surely it'll inspire so many different people that are currently training, that are thinking about training. So to close this off before we ask like what you've got coming up, if you've got one bit of advice you can give to somebody that may be going to their first couple of training sessions or haven't got through that door yet and are thinking, can it be for me? What advice would you give them, having not long ago been in their situation?
There's a few things. So first of all, there's a saying which I think is like comparison is the death of ambition. Don't compare yourself to someone else. There's one thing that I've learned being around such a varied group of people. It's that we all have strengths in different areas. I cannot backflip, but I can do things that someone who can backflip can't. And so long as you make sure that you keep working hard and that you work on these things and you realize your strengths and you play to them and you try and minimize your weaknesses, then you'll find a place and or you'll make a place for yourself if you're determined enough. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but nothing worth doing ever is. So just keep going, just keep pushing. Don't listen to naysayers. Just keep pushing, try and be the best that you can be, keep your head down and work hard.
Oh no, fantastic. So tell everybody, where can they find you? What have you got coming up? And yeah, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find me online, follow me online. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. You can find me basically if you put LA Taylor, you will pretty much find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Obviously, you can find updates and things through the Reach Academy Facebook page and through Reach Wrestling, who are also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, as well as anyone else from the Reach Academy. The absolute great bunch of people. Um, and I can't say about where I am next because it isn't announced yet, but I will definitely be at Supremacy in May, and I'm really looking forward to it.
No, thank you very much. And again, you can just find me at Gets Angle Pod. You can also hear me at Ringsiders Pod, where I'll be speaking with Callum and Jamie. We're doing a lot of video content now, and again, bringing you some fantastic interviews. And if you just want to talk to me directly, again, at Kate Johansson 93, you can find me on Twitter. For those of you at Reach, I'll be seeing you July 4th, so come say hi. And yeah, that was Kurt's Angle. This was the first episode from the ground up with LA Taylor. Thank you for listening.